What happens when you mix jealousy and obsession together? You get a lethal cocktail for murder and destruction. Hello everyone, my name is Anya, and in this video we're going to take a look at what happened on this day, on this night, in the year 1989. This is the story of Carolyn Warmus and her fatal attraction. On the night of the 15th of January 1989, 40-year-old Paul Solomon returned home after a night out in Greenboro, New York, only to discover his wife of over 20 years, Betty Jean, lying dead on the living room floor. Betty Jean Solomon had suffered a horrific death. She had been shot 9 times in the back and legs, and she had been pistol whipped in the head. The police were called and an investigation was immediately launched. Initially, Paul Solomon claimed that he had been out bowling with some friends, but after he realised that he was looked at as the prime suspect, he admitted to investigators that he had met up with a young woman with whom he'd been having an affair. That woman was 25-year-old Carolyn Warmus. Paul Solomon and Carolyn Warmus met at Greenville Elementary School where they worked as teachers. Despite the fact that he was a married man with a teenage daughter, Paul Solomon soon started an affair with Carolyn, and he began making the same promises to her that many mistresses have heard umpteen times before, that he was going to divorce his wife of Betty Jean and marry Carolyn. I wonder, has any married man ever carried through this promise? What Paul Solomon didn't know was that he was not the first married man that Carolyn Warmus had an affair with. Growing up, Carolyn Warmus had held numerous affairs with attached or married men, and whenever they tried to break up with her, she developed quite obsessive and frightening behaviour. On one such occasion, her stalking and harassment of a former lover grew so extreme that he and his fiancée had to get a permanent restraining order taken out against her. When Paul Solomon began to break away from her, Carolyn Warmus decided that she was not going to lose another lover to his wife. So on the night of the 15th of January 1989, Carolyn Warmus arranged to meet Paul Solomon at a bar. While he was driving to meet her, Carolyn snuck into his home and shot Betty Jean Solomon dead. Carolyn Warmus then drove to the bar to meet Paul Solomon, had a few drinks, and they went back to her car where they engaged in sex, acting like nothing had happened. After Paul Solomon admitted to the affair, investigators looked towards Carolyn Warmus as the suspect. Investigators discovered that she had purchased a handgun and a silencer using the ID of an acquaintance that she had stolen. With all the evidence pointing towards her, Carolyn Warmus was arrested and charged with the murder of Betty Jean Solomon. At her trial, with no surprise, Paul Solomon turned against Carolyn Warmus and testified against her. After a mistrial in 1992, Carolyn Warmus was found guilty of the second-degree murder of Betty Jean Solomon. She was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The story of Carolyn Warmus proved eerily similar to the 1987 film Fatal Attraction, where a young woman starts an affair with a married man, and when he begins to break away, she develops obsessive and controlling behaviour. In Carolyn Warmus's case, she succeeded in getting the wife out of the picture, but she spent nearly 30 years in prison before she was released in 2019. Carolyn Warmus has always maintained her innocence in the murder of Betty Jean Solomon, saying that she had nothing to do with it and that others could have been involved, but all the evidence has always pointed towards her. The story of Carolyn Warmus is the case of a fatal attraction gone horrifically wrong. And it's another case that shows that when you mix jealousy and obsession together, it turns into a lethal cocktail for murder and destruction. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. My name is Anya, and we've just looked at what happened on this day.